Enough fantasizing. It was time to get ready. Otherwise, I'll be late. Reluctantly, I took my last sip of coffee, grabbed my purse, and headed to work. There, I will have to face the object of my fantasies. His name was Bradley Stone, but everyone called him Stoney. The name suited him. It was truly carved from granite and brought to life by the breath of a Greek god. In short, he was the most handsome man I had ever seen. I know what they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but this was not just my opinion. By no means. He was practically the main topic of conversation when the girls from the office gathered. I recently heard Betty bragging in the dining room. She was absolutely delighted, telling the other girls that he smiled at her. Katie tried to interrupt, saying he had his hand on the back of her chair, leaning over her shoulder to check something on her computer screen. I think we all have our fantasies. When I was in high school, I had an incredible obsession with Sean Connery. I would give him my virginity in a heartbeat. This is not uncommon for teenagers with raging hormones. Hell, we all had a crush on someone back then, but it must be different now. We are adults. Is it still normal to have passions? My name is Langley Anderson, and for the last 16 years, I have been the faithful wife of Nelson Anderson, the best husband a wife could wish for. Together, we are raising our beautiful daughter, Evangelina. She is in her second year of high school and is truly a gift from heaven. I know. What right do I have to fantasize about another man? None, absolutely none. But I can't cope with it. I just have to look at him as he walks past my office door and I start squirming in my seat. I've been working with Stoney for about 7 months now, since he transferred to the Chicago office from California. When I first met him, I simply smiled while shaking his hand. I was scared to death that if I opened my mouth, I'd say something like, "Hey, do you want sex?" Wouldn't you know it, senior management chose me to show him around the office his first week. I tried to just ignore his appearance. I focused on treating him like any other colleague. And it worked, at least for a while. Some time ago, in order to ease my conscience, I even thought about confessing. That thought then turned into perhaps the most sinister and self-destructive idea I've ever had. I considered asking Nelson for leeway, permission for one night. As I said, Nelson is an almost perfect husband. He doesn't make millions, but he has a very good income and is home with his family almost every evening. He is loving, caring, considerate, patient, and passionate. He is honest and reliable to a fault. He teaches our daughter the difference between right and wrong through example and through the strength of his character. Just thinking about all the good things about him makes me wonder how I could even think about hurting such a person. I'm not stupid. I know that asking for freedom of action would destroy it. I also know that it would have damaged our marriage and our relationship, perhaps even ending it. Any woman who would do something like that must have the intelligence of an amoeba. No, I'm much smarter than that. I know that if I ever slept with Stoney, secrecy would be paramount and impeccable. No one, and I mean no one, except him and me, of course, could find out. I couldn't risk Nelson finding out for even a moment. As I pulled into the parking lot of our office complex, I took a deep breath to prepare for another day of self-flagellation. I needed to stop doing this to myself. Hell, yes, he's gorgeous, but at the end of the day, he's just a man. I need to keep telling myself this. He's just a man. He's just a man. A man with thick, wavy, raven black hair and pearlescent blue eyes that pierce your soul. A man with prominent cheekbones, deep dimples, a square jaw, and a strong chin with a dimple right in the middle. A man with broad shoulders and a body designed by Fisher. Yes, just a man. But oh, what a man. God. So I started again, reproaching myself. Sometimes I think I'm going crazy. Of course, there are times when I don't fantasize about sex with Stoney. Instead, I try to think of ways to get him into bed safely. I have no doubt that he is as interested as I am. Having been a beautiful woman my entire life, I've learned the difference between innocent flirting and whenever you want, baby. Stoney definitely falls into the latter category. No, the problem is not getting him into bed. The problem is making sure no one ever finds out about it. As I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 9th floor, I could remember doing it without my heart racing or my blood pressure rising. When the doors opened, the organized chaos of the busy office was calming and helped me get through another day. The first thing I did was head to the executive coffee shop, the one with real coffee and not that crap from the machine. Yes, I've worked my way up the corporate ladder enough to earn the right to a good cup of coffee. I said, I'm not stupid. I walked over to my desk and was just about to sit down and take a sip of my drink when my phone rang. Hello. Good morning, Langley. It was Mr. Johnson, one of the vice presidents and one of my immediate superiors. I said hello, and after a few pleasantries, he asked me to come to his office. I didn't think I was in trouble, but I was wondering what it was all about. Have a seat, Langley. I realized that something was happening. Most of the time, Johnson would just make you stand in front of his desk, tell you what he wanted, and then let you go. It's rare for him to invite someone to sit. Langley, how about a little vacation? Vacation? Oh, actually, Mr. Johnson, my vacation is scheduled for August. We already have a family trip planned. It's more of a working holiday, although there will be no real work there. The corporation is holding a seminar on international management techniques next week. All offices are required to send 2 representatives. I assigned Brubaker to go, but the damn idiot got up in the middle of the night, fell down the stairs and broke his leg. Oh God, will he be okay? Yeah, but he's going to have to rest up. He certainly can't get on a plane right now. How about you? I really need you to go. The flight is Sunday night at 6:40. You have a reservation at the Manhattan Hilton. It's right by the Times Square and 3 blocks from corporate headquarters. Seminars will be held in one of the large banquet rooms on the first floor. This is for 3 days only. Your return flight is Wednesday evening. Well, I guess I don't have a choice, do I? Not really. Okay, I said, standing up. Where are the tickets? Right here, Johnson said, taking them out from his desk. I really appreciate it, Langley. I'll figure out a way to thank you when you get back. Maybe take you on a romantic weekend with Nelson somewhere. I'll remember that, I replied. I had just reached the door when I remembered something. Mr. Johnson, you said 2 people from each office? Who else will be there? Stoney, but he won't be on the same plane. He's leaving on Saturday. He wants to hang out around New York this weekend. When Mr. Johnson mentioned Stoney's name, my knees nearly gave way. 3 nights in New York with Stoney. It was too good to be true. My only chance to make my fantasies come true. I felt wetness between my legs as soon as I returned to my desk. My head was spinning. It will actually happen. And Nelson will never know. It was almost impossible for me to keep my mind from wandering for the rest of the day. I alternated between my fantasies and how I was going to tell Nelson about the trip. He had never met Stoney, so I had no reason to worry about jealousy or suspicion. Hell, he trusted me like crazy. But I rarely went on business trips, and I needed to make sure I didn't sound too excited when I told him. I needed to act calm. When I pulled into our check-in, I saw that Nelson had arrived home before me. He does this sometimes. When I turned off the ignition, I realized that I was still in 7th heaven. I took a deep breath to calm myself and entered the house. Something smells good, I called. My dear husband had obviously already started preparing dinner. Hello, honey, I heard from the kitchen. I saw the pork butt in the fridge when I got home and figured it was planned for dinner, so I decided to give it some attention. I chopped up some carrots and potatoes to serve with it. I hope it's okay. This is perfect, I told him with a kiss. Where's Evie? Upstairs doing homework. She has quite a lot for the weekend, poor child. There's no better time than now. I have bad news, dear. Nelson immediately looked worried. What? It's nothing, dear. There's nothing to worry about. I have to go on a business trip next week, that's all. I'll have to leave on Sunday night. I'll be back on Wednesday night. How so? This is quite sudden, isn't it? Yes, that is true, but I'm afraid it's inevitable. The corporation is doing some kind of training. Mr. Johnson had already scheduled Dwight Brubaker to go, but he broke his leg last night. I'm afraid I'm the next best candidate. Well, that's what I get for marrying a woman with brains as well as beauty, huh? He said with a smile. This made me smile and earned me another kiss. I really did win the marriage lottery. I prolonged our kiss for a while. Of course, you understand that there is a positive side to all this, I told him as we stepped away from each other to catch our breath. And what is it? Even though I knew Evie couldn't hear us, I lowered my voice and tried to sound as sexy as possible. I'm going to enjoy you to the fullest on Saturday night. Nelson's smile widened. Do you think if I talk to your boss, he will be able to send you on business trips more often? I playfully hit his hand. Do not worry about it. We kissed again, after which I kissed and patted his chest with my left hand. I can just start saying goodbye to you tonight. Come on, big guy, I'll set the table and you call your daughter. Oh, I already called Mom and asked if she could watch Evie until you get back next week. She said it wasn't a problem, but she'll have to leave as soon as you get back. Okay, don't worry about us. We'll be fine. I know you will, darling. I really knew it. As a husband and father, he was very capable. Whether it was out of guilt or love, later that night I felt an overwhelming need to show Nelson how much I appreciated him. He didn't know, of course, but I was going to show him that even though I was going to cheat on him, he was my only love. Like a tigress, I crept into bed. I wanted it so bad for Nelson, but I couldn't help but wonder if Stoney would feel the same way about me. My thoughts started to run away. The image of Stoney popped into my head. We lay hugging each other, his arm wrapped around me. I felt guilty again for all the times Stoney had barged into our bed while we were making love. There was always a struggle over who would be my last thought before sleep overtook me at night, Stoney or Nelson. Honestly, I don't remember who won that night. Saturday was pretty normal. I did my shopping while Nelson mowed the lawn. We told Evie about my trip, and I asked her to be nice to her father. Saturday night, Nelson was determined to repay me for the previous night. I laughed as I watched him literally dive into our bed, but soon I stopped laughing. Again, as we lay with our arms wrapped around each other, I thought about the upcoming event. Nelson wasn't even close to Stoney when it came to looks. Hell, not many men were. But does better looks mean better sex? I was sure that he had more experience than Nelson, but I assumed that I would soon know the answer, so I didn't think about it. On Sunday morning, my thoughtful husband surprised his two favorite women by taking us to breakfast, after which we drove into town and spent the day at the Lincoln Park Zoo. It was a great day, and I didn't think about Stoney even once until it was time to get ready. I didn't dare pack sexy nightwear or anything like that for fear Nelson would walk in and see it. I stuffed my prettiest lace bra and panty set under the rest of my clothes. I also had cash on me that Nelson didn't know about. If I have time, maybe I can buy something nice in New York. It would be great if I could buy something cheap enough that Stoney could just rip it off my body. I was going to drive my car to the airport, but Evie wanted to watch my plane take off, so Nelson drove us. They walked me to the security area where I kissed them both and told them I would see them Wednesday night. As I got in line, I turned around and blew them both another kiss. As I approached the security area, I felt as if I was leaving one world and entering another. One world was work, family, practicality, responsibility, common sense, and loyalty. The other is freedom, liberation, immaturity, wild recklessness, and yes, infidelity. When I reached the TSA, I was afraid that they might mistake my anxiety for nervousness and get me in trouble, but everything went smoothly. When we boarded, I found myself between two men. Both were dressed very casually, but the one sitting to my right by the window had a laptop with him, and I guessed that he was a businessman. The man at the entrance was older, much older. I assumed he was going to visit his kids or something. Probably a widower. As soon as we took off, I leaned back and tried to get comfortable. I closed my eyes and felt a smile on my face as I began to fantasize about sex with Stoney. I heard one of the flight attendants tell everyone to return to their seats and raise the backs of their seats. I couldn't believe it. We had already arrived. I dreamed about Stoney the entire flight. Oh God, I hope he doesn't disappoint me. I grabbed a taxi to the Hilton and walked up to the freckled young man behind the counter. Hi, I'm Langley Anderson, Do you have a reservation for me? Yes, Miss Anderson, I have everything here, he replied, already taking out the key card. He placed it on the counter while he typed something into the computer. Do you need help with your bag, ma'am? No, I can handle it. Tell me, has Bradley Stone moved in yet? The young man quickly checked. Yes, ma'am. Would you like me to call his room? I was going to say yes, but I changed my mind. You shouldn't advertise it to the whole world. You can't know who might be listening. No, that's unnecessary. I signed the check-in receipt, grabbed my key card, and headed to the elevators. By the time I got to my room and unpacked, it was almost 11 New York time. It was 10 o'clock in the evening in Chicago. Before I did anything else, I had to call home and let my husband know that I had arrived safely. He picked up the phone on the second ring. Hi, Beauty. This surprised me a little. Oh, are you expecting a call from your friend? No? I'm waiting for a call from my traveling wife, he laughed. How did you know it was me? Who else would call at this time? In fact, I've been waiting for your call for half an hour. Did everything go well? Yes, no problem. It just took a while to get from the airport. I think I'm already starting to feel jet lag. I'm kind of tired. Okay, honey, I won't keep you. Rest. He was so sweet. We said goodbye and exchanged love yous. When I hung up the phone, I yawned. I couldn't believe it. I was really tired. Hell, I was going to go to the bar and see if Stoney was there, but I was getting tired quickly. It must have been because of all that sex with Nelson. I don't think either of us got much sleep the last 2 nights. What to do? I definitely didn't want to fall asleep while having sex with the sexiest man alive. Thinking about my options, I yawned again. That's it, I told myself. I've waited so long, I'll just have to wait one more night. I unpacked my clothes and hung them up, then took a hot shower. I laughed at myself, thinking I should have taken a cold one. Poor Nelson didn't even cross my mind that night. My dreams were conquered by an invading force of desire and passion, a force called Stoney. The next morning, I went to the hotel coffee shop for breakfast. One of the guys at work, who used to stay here, told me they have the best eggs Benedict in the world. As I approached the hostess, I saw a hand raised at the back table. Good morning, madam. Are you alone? She asked with a friendly smile and a strong New York accent. Actually, I see a friend over there, I said, pointing to the lone raised hand that was now waving. Mind if I join him? Of course, she replied as I followed her to the man of my dreams. I don't think Stoney even noticed how the beautiful young girl was flirting with him. She could accompany me, but her eyes were fixed only on him. He probably gets so much of it that he doesn't even notice anymore, I thought. I see you did it, he said, smiling his snow-white smile. Oh yeah, in case you haven't noticed, I'm a big girl now. I can find my way to and from the airport on my own. Oh, I noticed, he replied. Yeah, the first exchange with sexual overtones. I immediately realized that we were both on the same wavelength. From there, our conversation only intensified with bold ambiguities and hints. By the time he finished his steak and eggs and I finished my eggs Benedict, everything was decided. Without explicit words, we both knew what we would do for the next 2 nights. Of course, we sat together at the seminar. I'm not even sure what he was talking about. I continued to dream about what awaits us. As soon as I tried to calm down and listen to the guy who kept talking, Stoney would lean towards me and whisper something in my ear. The comments became increasingly filthy as they progressed. When we took a break for lunch, I didn't want to get up from my chair, afraid that my wet panties would give me a poop. The lunch seminar had a buffet set up in the back of the room. As soon as we arrived, a couple of guys from the California office came over to say hello to Stoney, and I was surrounded by guys who had moved from our Chicago office to New Jersey, so we were both busy. It was probably for the best. Otherwise, I might have thrown the food onto the floor and attacked Stoney right there in front of everyone. Well, that's how it was in my dream anyway. When the seminar ended at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was more excited than ever. Stoney and I stopped at one of the hotel bars for a quick drink. He started talking as soon as we were served. I've been thinking about this since I transferred to Chicago. Yes? Why didn't you say anything? I couldn't risk it. I love my wife and kids, but I also like the odd woman sometimes. I just have to be extremely careful. Angie, that's my wife, almost got me a couple of years ago. I had a little adventure with cheerleader L, A. Rams. Like an idiot, I brought her home one day for a quickie. Of course, Angie decided to leave work early that day due to illness and came home early. If she had come 20 minutes earlier, she would have caught me red-handed. I went through hell for a while after that. I told her I came home for something, but there was no doubt that she suspected. When I broke up with the cheerleader, she threatened to expose us. I was sure that I would lose my family. That obviously didn't happen, but it taught me to be more careful in the future. I have to admit, it was a little disconcerting to hear myself called a queer woman, but at the time I thought that was the point. I didn't take it personally. All I could think about was having this handsome guy pressed against my naked body. I probably shouldn't have told you this, but I've been fantasizing about you for the last few months. Really? Well, he chuckled. I've never done this before. How does it work? So, should I just come to your room or what? His smile was almost patronizing. Well, I need a shower to freshen up after sitting in a chair all day. I also need to call Angie and sort this out. Let's meet at the restaurant for dinner around 6:30. After that, you go to your room and I'll go to mine for a while. Just to make sure. When I'm sure the coast is clear, I'll approach you. Are you sure? I mean, if you're going to take a shower, I could rub your back. There was that protective smile again. I like your enthusiasm, Langley, but we have the whole evening for the next 2 nights together. I need some time to relax and talk with my wife and children. Plus, sex is always better on a full stomach. It increases stamina. I'll stay the night, but I'll set the alarm for 5 in the morning. That way I'll be back in my room before anyone wakes up. How do you like that plan? I was actually a little disappointed. I wonder if he has any idea how impatient I am. I thought about telling him that I didn't want to wait that long, but I decided to keep at least an ounce of pride and agreed to his schedule. We finished our drinks and headed to our rooms. Instead of a regular shower, I decided to soak in the bath. Kudos to the Hiltons. I noticed a small bottle of lavender bath oil on the shelf. I filled the bathtub with hot water and added oil before plunging into it up to my neck. Oh God, it was heavenly. I bathed until I started to wrinkle, then put on my Hilton robe and headed to the bed. I glanced at my watch as I fell onto the soft bed. It was only 20 minutes to 5. God, there must be a way to speed up time, I thought. Dressing and makeup will take about half an hour. That still leaves almost an hour and a half. What should I do with all that time? I lay there thinking. She looked at her watch again. 4:45. It was only 4:45 in Chicago, but interesting. Knowing my husband, I assumed he would leave work early to spend time with his daughter. I decided to call home. I had to make sure Nelson couldn't detect any guilt in my voice. Hello? Hey, honey, I knew you'd be home. Yeah, and how did you know that? Oh, I just thought you'd want to spend as much time as possible with your daughter while I'm gone, I joked. You, my love, never interfere. Damn, he always knew what to say. Oh, you're so cute. How was your day? Same as always. How's the workshop going? Are you learning how to do morning exercises in the parking lot before work every day? I knew it was just my guilty conscience, but when Nelson mentioned exercise, I immediately associated it with sex and nervously wondered for a moment if this was some kind of veiled hint that he knew what I was doing. But just as quickly as this thought came, I realized that this was not so. He simply made a reference to what workers in Japan do. No, I managed to say, laughing. No exercise, just boring stuff about the psychology of the relationship between employer and employee. Oh, sounds like a lot of fun, he replied. If you want to talk to Evie, she's right here. Certainly. Hey, Mom, when are you coming home? I'll be home Wednesday night, honey. Do you miss it? Yeah, I have a little problem with boys, Mom. She lowered her voice to a whisper. I need to talk to you. Okay, honey. Can it wait until I get back? Yes. Here comes Dad again, she whispered a second time. I love you, Mom. It was a little game we always played. I love you more, I replied. We love you more, my husband and daughter echoed in unison. I couldn't help but laugh. Okay, guys, I give up. I'm going to eat and then I have homework before I go to bed, so I'll tell you goodbye for the night. Okay, honey. Now it was just Nelson's voice again. Don't work too hard, my dear. I love you. I love you too, darling. Goodbye. With that, I hung up. For a moment, I thought about how lucky I am to have such a wonderful family. Of course, my next thought was to look at the clock and see how much time was left before I met Stoney. As I started to get dressed, all sorts of thoughts were running through my head. And if he wants something really kinky, will I let him? What if he insists on something I don't want? What should I do? God, what if he makes me... What am I thinking? He's not like that. If he tries, I can threaten to tell his wife. But then Nelson will find out. I just need to make my positions clear from the beginning. I was driving myself to a nervous breakdown. Relax, I told myself. We'll have dinner, drink wine, chat. Everything will be fine. Just calm down, go to the meeting and enjoy yourself, Langley. This is what you've been dreaming about for months. Just take it as it comes. Or take it as it is, I said out loud, laughing at my own joke. Next was deciding what to wear. We needed to be careful. We knew the people at the hotel. I wanted to look good for him, but it didn't have to look like we were on a date. It was supposed to simply look like two colleagues having dinner together before retiring to their rooms for the night. Damn, how I wanted to knock him off his feet. Apart from my one set of sexy lingerie, I didn't even have anything tempting for him to take off later. Well, I thought, maybe this is for the best. I didn't want to seem too impatient, even though we both knew I was. I looked good, but that was it when I took the elevator down to the lobby. I definitely didn't attract the attention of men when I headed to the restaurant. It was 6:20 when the head waiter approached me. I was about to tell him I wanted a table for two when I noticed Stoney already seated. Perhaps I wasn't the only one who was impatient. To be honest, I don't remember what I ate. I didn't pay attention to this. I could hardly take my eyes off him. There he is, right in front of me. Sean Connery, Tom Cruise, and Cary Grant rolled into one. I still couldn't believe that this was really happening. The hour was approaching. I felt my heart beating a little faster. Which room are you in? Stoney asked quietly. 1412. You have a better view of the city than I do, he commented. I'm on the 9th floor. Okay, you go first. I don't want us to be seen getting into the same elevator together. I'll give you a few minutes before I leave. I'll go to my room first for 10 or 15 minutes and then I'll come. Leave the door ajar so I don't have to knock. My throat was so dry that I had to take a sip of water before answering. Okay. I got up and headed to the lobby. We both had one bill for the trip, so it didn't matter who paid. I let him do it. By the time I got back to my room, I was so nervous that I almost forgot to leave the door ajar. Now what, I thought. Should I wait for him in bed? Should I take my clothes off or maybe stay in my black lace panties and bra? No, I want him to undress me. I want a little romance before I just get down to business. I decided to just wait. I checked the time on my phone. 7:20. Oh, God. I started hyperventilating. I needed to calm down. I tried to take a few deep breaths. I got up and started walking back and forth. I needed a distraction for just a minute. I went to the minibar to make sure it was well stocked. I checked the inventory to make sure we had enough for several martinis. I took a couple more deep breaths and tried to force myself to relax. I checked my phone again. 7:26. That's it. My dream was coming true. My palms began to sweat. In fact, I started sweating all over my body. I rushed to the bathroom to touch up my makeup and apply deodorant. I had just returned when I saw Stoney quietly closing the door. He looked at me and smiled, locking the door. Finally, we are alone, he said. Can you like a drink? I can make us a couple martinis, I finally managed to say. Later, he said, closing the distance between us. It was like my skin was on fire as he grabbed the tops of my arms and pulled me towards him. I looked into his piercing blue eyes and felt like I was going to explode. By this point, my heart was pounding and my pulse was racing. My skin tingled with every nerve in my body sparkling with passion. Together our lips touched. I started to feel dizzy. The room began to spin. But something was wrong. Then I heard their voices echoing in my head. I love you more. I could see their image clearly. My husband and daughter stood there telling me they loved me more while I kissed another man. It was like a lightning strike. My body wasn't reacting to the excitement or anticipation of sex with Stoney. It was responding to the awareness of it. My nerves weren't burning with passion. They were telling me what a fool I was. Something was wrong, because fantasy is one thing, but cheating is unforgivable. I was on the verge of making the biggest mistake of my life. That's what my body was telling me. I quickly opened my eyes and pushed my hands away from Stoney's chest, while simultaneously pulling my lips away from his. I pushed so hard that he had to take a step back to avoid falling. It was clear from his face that he was very embarrassed. What's the matter? I can't do this, Stoney. I don't know what I was thinking. Thought? You've been dreaming about this for months. This is what we both want. You're just nervous. Let's have a drink. It'll help you relax. We'll just slow down, that's all. I'm gonna give you a night you'll never forget. Stoney, no, I'm serious. I can't do this. I can't do this to my husband. I can't do this to my daughter. You don't do anything to them. They'll never know. I was extremely careful not to let anyone see me. It's just you and me, Langley. No one else will ever know. I'll know, Stoney. I'll know. I'll never be able to look Nelson in the eye again. I'm so ashamed of myself for letting it get this far. My eyes filled with tears as I sat on the edge of the bed. My hands shook at the thought of how close I was to betraying my husband. Don't you love your wife? Don't... Yes, of course I love her. I told you I love her. That's why I'm so careful. But what she doesn't know won't hurt her. It's not true. It will hurt her because you lose respect for her every time you do it to someone else. Oh, that's nonsense, Langley, and you know it. Just because I sometimes sleep with another woman doesn't mean I don't love or respect my wife. That's absurd. Is that so? I don't think so. You may love the way she looks or love being married to her. I don't know. But I don't believe you really love her. You can't respect someone you betray every time. Opportunities. You sure don't respect your marriage vows, there's no denying that. And if you don't respect the vows, how can you respect the woman you made them to? No, Stoney, you can't say you respect your wife, and I don't think that you can really love someone you don't respect. You're making a mountain out of a mountain, Langley. Jennifer is a good mother and a good wife, and despite what you say, I love her to death. Really? What if she ever finds out? I immediately saw in his face that he perceived my question as a threat. No, Stoney, I'm not threatening to tell your wife, but what if someone sees you one day? Or maybe someone falls in love with your beautiful features and wants to ruin your marriage so they can have you for themselves. You said it yourself, that it almost happened once. I would have thought it would have taught you. Imagine how much it would hurt your wife and children if it ever happened. Okay, you made your point, he said, turning to the door. You don't want to? Fine. But you shouldn't make moral judgments about how I lead my life, he said, closing the door behind him. I'm not sure how long I sat, quite a long time. I cried from time to time. I thought about all the people in my life and what they would think of me if they knew how close I was to sleeping with another man. My mom, my dad, my sister, they would all be devastated, not to mention Nelson and Evangeline. Even most of our friends would look at me as an immoral woman. After another bout of tears, I made myself a drink. I walked to the window and opened the curtains on the large floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. Damn, that was great. If I press my face against the glass and press my cheek against it, I can see the Empire State Building reaching towards the clouds. Suddenly I felt so alone. The walls of the room knew my shame. The air smelled of my guilt. I needed my husband. I needed my family. I wanted so badly to call Nelson, but I was afraid he would hear the shame and self-loathing in my voice. God, how I wished I had a good book. I had all these plans for evenings with Stoney, so I didn't even think about taking her with me. I lay down on the bed, closed my eyes, and could see Nelson's face smiling down at me. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I'm very, very sorry. I felt remorse leak from my eyes and run down my cheek. In the end, I fell asleep on a wet pillow. The next morning, I really didn't want to see Stoney, so I left the hotel and went to a small restaurant down the block for breakfast. I deliberately came to the seminar late and sat in the back of the room. He didn't seem to feel any more eager to talk to me than I was to talk to him. He didn't even look my way when we broke for lunch. That evening, I had dinner in my room. One more day, and I would be home. I missed my family so much that the feeling of loneliness was palpable. Usually, I am completely calm about being alone. Of course, I'm usually pleased with myself. That's the difference. I didn't feel that way at that moment. I felt dirty and ashamed. By 9 o'clock in the evening, I mustered up the courage to call Nelson. I tried to sound normal, but apparently I wasn't very successful, because halfway through our conversation, he asked if something was wrong. I used the time-tested excuse that I was just tired. I would have to work hard to rid myself of the guilt before returning home. Stoney and I didn't exchange a word on the last day. When I arrived at the airport, I noticed him sitting in the waiting room for the same flight as me. I wondered if I should try to start a conversation. After all, we still had to work together. He raised his head from what he was reading and saw me, but didn't even smile. At that moment, I thought, okay, we'll probably talk at work. As far as I was concerned, that was enough. When we boarded, he was in seat 4A. I was in seat 10C. All I could think about during the entire flight home was how I had betrayed my family. I thought back to the first time I met Stoney, and how my heart started racing. I thought about all the times I imagined it was Stoney making love to me, not Nelson. The more I thought about it, the more guilty I felt. Again. The second time I wondered whether I should confess. It would ease my guilt, but it would definitely hurt the person I love. Again, I completely rejected the idea. As we pulled into the gate at O'Hare, I looked up to see Stoney, immediately after stopping, unbuckle his seatbelt, grab his bag from the overhead compartment, and begin to walk toward the exit first. It seemed to me that he was behaving rather childishly, ignoring me. Then it dawned on me. He was not used to rejection. I have to admit, it made me smile. I took a deep breath, preparing to see the two most important people in my life. When I saw them in the waiting area, my heart felt like it was about to jump out of my chest. It was only 3 days, but it seemed like an eternity. The wheels of my travel bag hummed loudly on the tiles as I picked up my pace almost to a run. I literally flew into Nelson's arms. I felt so safe being in his arms. I'm not sure how long our kiss lasted, but it was eventually interrupted by Evangeline. Mom, did you see that guy on the plane? Is he an actor? What, honey? I asked, breaking our kiss and turning my attention to our daughter. The guy who was on the plane? I think it's time to have that conversation, honey. Our daughter is starting to notice boys. Oh, Dad, Evie replied. I think we both laughed at Nelson's comment. Honey, Evie and I had this conversation a long time ago, and there have been several more since then, I explained. Oh, was his only comment. I could tell he was a little embarrassed. She saw some guy getting off the same plane as you. I have to admit, he was damn good looking. Of course, I immediately understood who they were talking about. It's amazing how fast the human brain can work when needed. Almost instantly, I realized that I had two options. I could say, oh, it was Stoney, or I could just shut up. The chances of Nelson and Stoney ever meeting were pretty slim, so I decided to keep quiet. There was no need to arouse suspicion in my husband. Sorry, honey, I said after hugging my daughter. I didn't see any celebrities. Later that night, after Evie went to bed, Nelson and I made love. And it truly was love. There was no third party in the room that night, just me and my loving husband. Stoney didn't even cross my mind. It's strange how the mind works sometimes. Before New York, I couldn't look at Stoney without dreaming of spending the night with him. After a shocking realization of reality, I now see him the way I see any man who is not my husband, with a simple lack of interest. When I hear secretaries talk about him instead of feeding their fantasies, I think how stupid they are being. I know this still annoys Stoney. I see it in his eyes. Every time he looks at me, He sees the one who left, the one who rejected him. I have to admit that I feel a little proud about this. A week after I returned, Mr. Johnson said nothing, so I accidentally reminded him of his promise. A few days later, his secretary stopped by my desk with a package for a weekend at a romantic bed and breakfast hotel in Galena. I immediately called my mom to ask if she could look after Evie for the weekend. She said she had the following weekend free, so I made a reservation. I decided to make it a surprise for Nelson. It took me a long time to deal with my guilt. In fact, every time I think about it, I still feel it, even today. Luckily, Nelson never found out, and I will take my secret to the grave before I hurt him. He is the best husband and father a wife could ask for. Now it's time for me to become a better wife and mother. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.